pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for roll call, we'll let the record reflect that all board members are present. And for board chair comments, the weather is finally getting nice enough that we can actually do some things outdoors. So that's really nice to see. I know the kids are really enjoying that. That's all I have for board chair comments. So I'll take a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. I have a motion by Director Bauman and a second from Director Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. All right, appreciation, recognition, and presentations.
I'll go first. Chair Hobson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp. We are here, or I'm presenting our BPA. BPA, come on up. We invited all of them, just if it worked out for everybody or not. I just want to sit through theirs. We had 16 state participants for BPA, and that's a strong showing. I mean, you can take a look at what they're involved in and all the things that they're involved in and the different categories that they qualified in. It's pretty remarkable. So our BPA program has done a phenomenal job getting involved with leadership, taking an active role in our region with that leadership, and giving our kids the skills to improve and succeed in the future. This will just be, I'll name off just the state finalists, and then we'll get to our national qualifiers. Brady Hill was a finalist in the visual design team. Brian Bozer was also a part of that visual design team as a state finalist. Cole Procott was a part of that visual design team that was a state finalist. Michael Zimmerman was a part of that state finalist team as well. Carter Lampert was a state finalist in admin support concepts. We've got Trent Hakemeyer, which is a finalist in fundamental word processing. Nick Block was a finalist in banking and finance and personal financial management. So we've got a lot of different categories that our kids are involved in. Now, as far as our national qualifiers, we have 5 of them. 4 are going to the national convention in Anaheim, and they leave
Wednesday morning.
2 a.m. They're on the bus getting down to get into MSP so they can check in for their flight at 6 a.m. So Aiden Ripple. Okay, Aiden Ripple placed 4th out of 40 in fundamental accounting in our state. Levi Lampert qualified in advanced spreadsheets and applications. He was 3rd out of 14th. Mune Toure, 2nd in interview skills in the state. Michael Zimmerman, who isn't here with us tonight, 3rd out of 101 in digital communication and design concepts. And Nick Block was 4th out of 173 in management, marketing, and HR concepts. So phenomenal job to these kids. Well-deserved, well-earned a BPA. BPA is leaving Wednesday morning. They've got their docket. Steph Berg ran me through their itinerary. They're busy. They are stacked up to what they're going to be doing and taking their tests and networking and leading our region and Minnesota.
Active service and some sightseeing. Nick is going to the Angels game. His mom is coming with, so he's back in time for confirmation on Sunday. We're working to reschedule our tour at the Griffith Observatory that has a hiking trail up to the Hollywood sign. And not excited about the Hollywood sign, but when you turn around and see the view. Knott's Berry Farm, Muna has her interview at 1 on Friday. Aiden and Nick have their events at 7 a.m. on Thursday morning. They'll get their open events in Wednesday when we get there, and Saturday we'll breathe and go to the awards ceremony. The opening session's Wednesday night. There's a SoCal Bash Friday night that would be back in time for. That's got some rock climbing and surf simulation and some other fun stuff to get to know, and trading pins, so our business nerds make friends with the other business nerds from across the nation. So,
Congratulations to them.
Maybe sneak them out. They had like.
All right, thank you. Good luck, you guys. Congratulations.
Jared Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Werekamp, recognition, you would have received word this week that we were gonna have the students of the month and spelling bee. My fault, I did not get a chance. I was gone today, did not get a chance to finalize those plans with them, so we will recognize students of the month spelling bee and other students as we get to May. So my apologies for that. Thank you.
Great. There appears to be some formalities that I'm meant to say as I stand up here that I'm not schooled and aware of. There it is. Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werekamp. I'm Kathy Tortson. I'm the art teacher, and I'm here to recognize one of my many talented senior artists, Isaac Newts. He is our senior artist in the spotlight. I wanted to recognize him because he's exceptionally talented, insanely hardworking, and in many ways, a little bit more than I'd like to admit, self-taught. He's actually done an insane amount of painting on his own. This year, he's gotten into some oil painting, so he's not afraid to take risks. And we're just really thrilled with the amount of growth I've seen in the past 6 years that I've known him. And then in the last 2 years alone, his skills have just really blossomed. So I wanted to make sure to recognize him, and then you'll also have an opportunity to see his artwork on display in the cafetorium on May 19th. Is when his work along with 11 other seniors. So, Isaac.
Hey, pictures, Isaac?
Thank you.
Walk by. Right. All right. That is for recognition. All right, so recognition of citizens for input purposes. So I'll read this. The Board of Education allows public participation at its meetings, but at the same time has a responsibility for conducting its business in an orderly fashion. Chairperson will provide the audience with an opportunity to address the board at the beginning of the meeting. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes for his or her presentation. When there are a large number of speakers to be heard, the Board of Education may shorten the time. Undue interruption or the interference with the orderly conduct of the Board of Education business cannot be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. Chairperson may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, she persists in improper conduct or remarks. Members of the Board of Education and the superintendent may question the speaker or make comments in response to the speaker's remarks. At a public meeting of the board, no person shall orally initiate charges or complaints against individual employees of the district or challenge instructional materials used in the district. All complaints about staff or other issues shall be referred to the superintendent for investigation and report. All right. Are there any citizens for input purposes? Yep. Can you come up and?
Good evening. I have been emailing back and forth with Dr. Weirkamp on a couple just questions I had. And as a taxpayer and district member, I just want you guys, when you're taking, I don't know, into account decisions we're making in the district as far as, I just noticed the last, I don't know how many months I've been paying attention, and I haven't had a lot of time to dig into everything. That there's been a lot of restructuring in the administrative office, which I understand needs to happen sometimes. But overall, I guess my basic point is I had pulled up our, I don't know if you guys have looked at the Minnesota site where it lists all the schools by district, what they're rating at for their testing. And I understand not all kids test well. But in general, I guess I printed off the elementary, middle school and high school. If anyone would want to take a peek at them or go look, they're out there. So district wide, we're falling at like the last I went from 2019, just because 2020 was kind of a wash with COVID or not. I don't even think they administered the MCA testing. I know there was extra dollars spent in the districts during COVID with the COVID relief money, but I'm not really sure what that was spent on, nor does it, I guess, matter to me as far as exactly what it was spent on, unless I want to dig into that. But since 2019, we've been at like that. I want to say it jumps up and down, maybe 1% or 2% here and there, but we're at well below. We're at like 51%, 50. Overall math is 51% in 2022, readings 52%, and science is 51%. I guess the last email I had gotten an answer to was, I wanted to kind of see where our administrative, as far as dollars we're spending, land. And so when I got the email, there was 11 total positions on there, 1 including the 6 of you board members. So I kind of looked at 10 total. And we're right around that $800,000. I guess when making decisions as far as you guys being voted in for the community and the taxpayers, that we're looking at what's benefiting the children. If there's dollars that could be spent more. I mean, obviously we need help in some of these, and I've been kind of distant since I got off the board just because I don't want to be a burden to anybody. But, when I look at this, it's concerning that kids are, I guess, that low on test scoring. And I'm just hoping, as voted in community members and board members, that you guys are looking at, all the increases. And I know there's increases. Everywhere. I have a business and so does my husband. And so dollar amounts go up on what you need to spend, but just definitely take into consideration that what we're spending the extra dollars on is truly helping our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports and news. So board committee reports, we'll start with finance.
The finance committee met on Tuesday, April 18th for our regular meeting. And Scott Moran will probably give most of that information in his finance report. We also had a finance 101 at our April 17th work session, which was an excellent training that we all benefited from. That's about all I have to report for finance.
Yeah, that was a great briefing. Policy.
Policy met. We discussed 414. There would be no further changes to that, and we'll go on for third and final reading. 415, the same thing, no changes. Third and final reading. 506. we didn't have policy 505, we're gonna add policy 505 because it references it, and then go in for third and final reading on that. And then 612.1, development of parental, what is the name of that one? Whatever. Parent and family engagement policy 612.1. We're gonna move that one for third and final too. And that's where we ran out of time, so.
Yep.
That's how policy meeting goes sometimes. Sometimes you roll right through them and sometimes you get stuck and. We talk about like 9 policies because. They all kind of are alike, but whatever. So that's what we have, so.
All right, thank you. And for Mid-State, we had our meeting. We have another one coming up. Nothing too big going on there. We approved some contracts for lawn and snow, so that was about it. And
I don't need the long one.
you never know. Eventually we will. So that's about it from Mid-State. Superintendent report.
Well, I just want to update everyone that we had our Sourcewell event for students of character last week. Kylie Brzezinski and Ashton Oldakowski were the award winners, and that was a very nice, well-done event with a very good speaker. I think the kids could all resonate with what he was saying, and that is one of my most favorite events because we're talking about character, and so I think that those particular students represent us well. And then just to give an update, I did, and I said at the work session, I'll say here, I did verify with MDE that we will be able to offer free breakfast and lunches this summer for summer school, since we're part of the Nationals student lunch program. So that's good news. I didn't know if that legislation that was signed by the governor would actually affect summer school, if it was just the regular school year, and they did verify for me. I have it in writing. So looking forward to that opportunity for our students, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Business manager report.
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
You can, Scott.
Awesome, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I am Scott Moran. I am on your screen instead of in person like last week, so I can save you guys all the trouble. All right, so I'll go through my finance report, and if Michelle, if you can pull that up, please.
I have it up.
Okay, perfect. So I'm working off one screen. Sometimes my sound doesn't work if I have my second screen plugged in. So our enrollment off of the adopted budget, we had 920 ADMs. The revised budget, which we're going to go through tonight, I'm basing it off of 938 ADMs. And the current enrollment as of April 16, 2023 is 947 ADMs. Like I mentioned before in the work session, that I like to stay a little bit lower than our actual ADM report, just because I want to make sure we are leaving a gap there for any contingencies in case enrollment declines at all, but it's looking very good. So that additional revenue will certainly help out the Royalton School District. Moving down to revenues, as I mentioned in every board meeting, I always have the board reports. Those are separate from the slide presentation that I do, but I pulled this right out of the report that's out there for everybody to see. I also highlight where we're at for current year to date versus prior year to date for both the revenues, and on the next slide for expenditures. And then in my next slide, I go in to discuss the why, the where and why. So revenues are 775,000 where we were in FY22, primarily from the biennium increase, additional ADMs. This is less the 10% holdback, as every district has a 90-10. So you get 90% of your funding throughout the year, and 10% comes in September, October, November. And the expenditures are 1.1 million ahead of FY22 pace, primarily due to early purchases of capital equipment and salary, and the benefit increases. And the purchase services are up due to staff's coverage. So this will be a little bit new. Talking to Dr. Weirkamp, she had a request that we pull out a certain section during these reports to highlight, as we just went through the Finance 101 class, if you will, training last week. I want to pull out a certain section just to highlight for you guys, and then so continue with your development and learning about school finances. So in this particular month, I'm highlighting the vocational instructional, otherwise known as career and technical education, or CTE, as you'll hear it being referred to often. As I mentioned, we received 35% of the eligible expenditures. And then you can see in FY21, we had 86,000. So if you can see that on the left-hand side underneath June 30, 2021, we had 86,000. So when we came in, we were able to reclassify the coding of the staff that are CTE certified, and we were able to increase our expenditures for that, where we can get 35% of that. So why is this significant? Our costs appear to go up. So why is this a good thing? Well, the costs are going up. They are being shifted from the general fund, which it was before, and now it's going into the correct CTE code. So this means that we can get 35% of that back. And it also helps our general fund. So whereas before everything was coming out of that general fund and we weren't getting reimbursed for that. So it increases our revenue by $43,403. Does that make sense? Okay. And my next slide is all done, but any questions for me while I'm on?
I have one question, Scott, as you're bringing this up, how long do we have, like, once we find something like this that we can shift around to correct where the money comes from or use a different fund to leave general fund dollars? How far back can you go to do that?
Once the audit is over, you'd have to go through a lot of steps to open that back up. So usually the audit is the hard cutoff, November 30th of every year.
For the previous year?
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Scott, I have one question for you as well.
Yes.
On your first slide about enrollment, would there be a possibility that we could see some comparative data on this slide when you show it each month? Like, can we see like a 5-year comparison of the ADMs so we can watch for growth trends?
Yes. And you think 5 years would be the timeline?
I'm just throwing a ballpark idea out there. Just so we
Okay.
can get those comparative numbers.
Sure. Yep, we can do that.
Thanks.
Is that something we can do for the next work session, Scott?
Yeah, that's May 10th, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I can put that together for May 10th work session.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for Scott? Principal report. Thank you, Scott.
No problem. Thank you.
Person Hofstad, board members, Superintendent Wortham, good evening. Want to start out, we had a school assembly, Sonic Escape. I'm pointing it out because it was sponsored by our local library. So we have a really good partnership working with them, and they were a flute and violin player who've been trained at the Juilliard School in New York City. I mean, they're really good. So they played in New York City and just did a great job. Just fascinating how good people can be with their instruments. And the students had lots of questions. So went really well. We are interviewing for a preschool teacher, a 4-year-old for the 4-year-old program tomorrow evening here. And it was 20 4th and 5th graders qualified for the math master's program, which is this Wednesday at Sourcewell. We've always had a lot of kids qualifying and then doing well there. So that's part of our gifted, talented enrichment program. And Sherry Bishop will be bringing the students there. Looking ahead to May 11th, we are putting on an elementary spring concert this year. It'll be the 4th and 5th graders, led by our music teacher, Samantha Thompson. So it's a spring musical concert here in the cafetorium, 1:30 and 6:30. This is probably for Dr. Werkamp, me and Joel. Secretary's Administrative Assistant Day is this Wednesday, so that's a big deal. I forgot about those days a couple times, so paid a price. Eventually had to come up with something. And Staff Appreciation Week is May 8th through 12th. PTO helps with that. And our teachers made an MCA video. It turned out really good. The idea was to motivate students to take the MCAs seriously, and You do amazing things, so congratulations to them. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Werkamp. Couple updates, prom will be May 6th. Saturday, grand marches 3:30 and 4:30 in the central gym. Then our students will board buses and go to Territory Golf Club. Where they'll have the dinner and dance. It's usually a very good time. Our students, it's nice to get our students away from the building, and they're all together, and they've been given a ride in a coach. And 15 years ago, when I was activities director, we had prom, and I chaperoned it, and it was in the school, and the students all went out to their own dinner, so they're all separate for most of the day. Then they came back and the grand march, and then the dance, and I want to say at 9:30, there was 6 kids left in the gym. They all basically come in, done grand march, danced a couple dances and left. You're talking spending dollars on decoration and DJ and all of those expenses that go into prom, and there was a half dozen kids that were that stayed for it. And so when this development of the prom idea going off-site, we now have 135, 140 kids that go to prom, 2 coach buses. They all are together. They have a great time. And so I invite you to take part in Grand March with us on March 6th. It should be a good time. I'm May 6th, I'm sorry, my God. Students of character, just like to echo Dr. Werkamp and congratulate Kylie and Ashton. It's a very nice event at Madden's, and both of those students are the epitome of what character is about. They do the right thing. I kind of judge it by students will do the right thing when no one's watching. These are 2 students that do that, and they're very deserving of that recognition. So I'd like to congratulate them. And then finally, just be on the lookout for the graduation letter scheduled to come out the first week of May, where I'll have instructions, seating charts, everything that you need to know for graduation. But that is right around the first week of May. So any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And athletic director.
Chair Hossa, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Werkamp. Finally feels 6 weeks into the spring season that we get some traction and getting outside into play. Been frustrating all around for everybody, but we're kind of hamstrung of what we can do, and now we got full slates of games and meets. We're probably looking at four events a week for softball and baseball through the end. I mean, we have 4 weeks before softballs hit section time, and this is our third game today. So baseball, we were only able to get 18 games in right now. We might be able to find another team or 2 to play, but we've already lost 2 because of schedules. They just don't line up. Golf, you know, we've got 3 meets this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sort of we'll rotate kids through and get them out in the course. It's hard when the course isn't open to practice. Wood Falls just keeps pushing it back because they're hamstrung because they're not ready either. So do what we can to get them out and play and try to get creative in those things. But we're moving along. Track, you know, they participate in the holding board tomorrow, and then next week they got 2, and then it's getting into mid-May. Now we got true team, and then you got think about subsections, so they're already thinking that kind of stuff. So it's been busy. This week we've got a lot of state stuff going on, a lot of stuff. We've got state speeches going down to the state tournament. In at Eastview High School. We've got Nate Moga and Brianna Wenner competing at the state meet. So congratulations to them, and hopefully they can come back with some medals. We've got state FFA. They left yesterday and they're down there competing today and tomorrow. So that's exciting. And you heard from BPA already. Trap shooting is off and running on their Sundays and Tuesdays. So it's been busy. Any questions for me?
Go ahead. I just have a small question.
Mhm.
How did it get decided that trap shooting shoots on Sundays?
That's when the range is available to us. Because peer, we have to share with peers. So they get Mondays and Wednesdays, we get Sundays and Tuesdays, and they have to have their league shoot nights and all that.
And it's not sanctioned.
Yeah, so we partner with the high school league on this, but they don't run it. So the way that we're able to do it through activity is, we're not bound by the Monday through Saturday rules, like robotics. First Robotics is sponsored by the high school league. We're Vex Robotics, so we're able to practice and do our stuff on Sundays, so. We'll just have to get our stuff in when we can.
Just one.
I have two. Does track do any indoor track meets anywhere? Like,
We had gotten into Foley a couple years ago, and then with COVID, we were out, and then they were just conference, so then they kind of got their new schools in. We do a conference meet. We had done it at St. Cloud State. They were less than ideal to work with because they didn't want us to use their stuff. So we would have had to bring our own pits, our own poles, everything. So we've decided to go to St. John's instead for a conference indoor meet, and that happens at end of March. We had thought about getting others, but St. John's is starting to say, okay, well, we have to use our space for our kids.
Yeah.
When trying to get out there. So those indoors meets were tough. Foley's had a bunch, but with their conference, they just kind of rotate through. So
Yeah.
we try to get them out, but it can be tricky.
and then do you know like a rough, I'm just curious how many golfers we had signed up? Do you know like a rough? number?
We have 30 7 through 12 boys. 25 are 9 through 12. And right now we have 9 girls, 7 through 12.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next is the consent agenda approval. So the board is consenting to approve items listed below as presented at one time. At any point, a director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion. Anybody have anything that they want to pull?
I would like to,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask a question about C and H, if you don't mind.
Yep, so. Okay. All right, so I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus C and H.
So moved.
All right. So I have a motion and a second to approve all items minus C and H on the consent agenda. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 6-0. Next is, we'll talk about 9C.
I just have a couple quick questions to understand, the check registry. I just seen, an expense for out-of-state tuition to Fargo Public Schools. I was just wondering, do we pay for a student to go there? Or I was just trying to understand what that, expenditure was, and if anybody understood, or if anybody could explain what it, out-of-state tuition is for Fargo schools. That, no, not online students at it's a. Yes. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's all I wanted to, just to understand. I thought, well, that's strange. And then just some clarification. I was wondering if I could, I seen some charges, to the MSBA for the training for the new, school board members, and I was wondering if that was supposed to be a part of our package, or if I could see the contract that we have with the MSBA to see what's included in that package. So I would love to look at that, if that's available. And that's what I had for questions on the check registry, and I just wanted to ask a question about,
By the way, it's my look. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to go back to your MSBA question.
okay,
It's not really a contract. It's more
Okay.
part of the association. But we can show you what you get with that.
okay, yeah, that's what I was just
I
trying
just
to,
wanted to
like, what
clarify,
do
it's
we
not-
get
Yep.
with our, and is everything à la carte expense with MSBA or whatnot?
Yep.
And then one last question I had in reading the employee reimbursements. I was just wondering, just as an educational standpoint, like, can someone inform me, like, what is our process of like, checks and balances to just ensure that there's like no mistakes happening or abuses with the
They provide receipts and
employee?
verify for receipts.
So there's a process.
Yes.
Through which they follow?
Yeah.
Okay. That was all I had for those questions.
We just, that one will come up here in policy.
Will it?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, so my guess is within the next year or so, we'll see it again. Just-
Well, as board treasurer, I just wonder what the process is, you know, just.
Yep, no, there's a policy on it, and it, it's pretty. Well, it's like
I'll look it up.
policy, it's wordy,
That's great, yeah, that's awesome. I'll just look it up and read it. Perfect.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve 9C claims, accounts, and financial.
I'll second it.
Director Hackett, so I have a motion and a second to approve 9C claims, accounts, and financial. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And 9H.
So I had a question on, the new contract for the Director of Human Resources and Community Ed. So I was under the impression at first that this was gonna maybe possibly be like a title change position and restructure, but as I read this contract, I just see that there's significant change in language to the health benefits for this position and to the health savings account and wellness account. And so I just wanted to verify, because I want to see if I'm understanding this correctly. So it's the hiring team's responsibility for the negotiation of this contract, since there's so much verbiage change from the previous contract to this new contract.
It
I
was
just wanna-
aligned to the principal's contract because they evaluate licensed teachers, just like principals and assistant principals. So they got aligned, the language aligned to the principal's contract
Okay. That
because
makes-
they do a lot of the similar functions as principals.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to verify where that language change came from and. All right, that's the question I had there and just wanted to clarify that. So thanks. That's all I have for questions.
Okay. I will. I will take a motion to approve 9H. Approval of Human Resources Community Ed Director contract.
One second.
Director Roaring. All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, number 10, approval of revised budget.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, of the board, Scott Ryan here again. As Michelle, you're pulling that up, I'm going to switch over and follow along my screen. So if you can, just stay with me. If you get lost, just let me know. All right. So again, as I pointed out last week when I was there, it's hard to ask you not to pay attention to the beginning fund balance and the end of year or net increase or decrease. All we're asking, or what we do every year, is we revise the budget. So you're approving the revenues and the expenditures in those second and third columns. So I'll go down the line here, and if you guys want me to stop at any point, just let me know. But starting off with the restricted accounts, or let me jump up 1 second. So the unassigned fund balance, we're looking at revenues of 10.4 million, expenditures 9.9 million. And then in the restricted accounts, as I mentioned last week with the student activities, I truly don't do anything with those because those are the fundraise accounts by the students. So the revenues that we typically get in each year, 182,000. And like I mentioned, I don't do anything with the expenditures because it's at their discretion. The only thing we cannot do out of that is pay salaries out of that. So, and similar to scholarships. So staff development, we receive $142,394 with the expected expenditures of $47,966. If the expenditures were above and beyond the revenues, we would make sure that that nets to zero, and we would have to write that off from our general fund. But as you can see, we have less expenditures than revenues there. So moving down to operating capital, here I will point out that the beginning fund balance of $472,767 because we had some planned expenditure spend down last May. We got together as a group and approved some capital expenditures from the principals and the admin team. Excuse me. So with that, we have $227,795 coming in for revenues. And as I mentioned, a planned spend down. So we do have a higher expenditure rate there of $412,212. But as you can see, even with that planned spend down, we're still going to have a nice fund balance off to the right there to be expected of $288,000 at the end of the year. Moving down to gifted and talented. There, we also do have a little bit of a slight increase in expenditures, outpacing our revenues, but you can see also we had a beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year and still will have a positive fund balance at the end of the year, so there doesn't need to be a write-off there either. Moving down to Safe Schools, we had 37,000 in revenues, 32,000 expenditures, also increasing our fund balance. Even though I'm telling you not to pay attention to that, I am pointing it out. So my apologies with that. Then LTFM, so 181,594 in revenues, 241,725 in expenditures. And again, we had a fund balance at the beginning of the year, and we'll have a slight fund balance at the end of the year. LTFM is one of those restricted accounts that can go negative. We would not have to necessarily write that ship from the general fund if we didn't have to. If we did ever come as a district, come as an agreement to spend that down for, say, a project that we needed to look at, and we knew that it was going to outpace our revenues for the LTFM of that year. Next line item is the medical assistance with 15,000 in revenues with a small expenditure of $50. You can see that that fund balance is continuing to grow. And Dr. Weerkamp and I will discuss about ways how we can use those funds moving forward. Some of them I pointed out last week. So moving down to Fund 2 for our food service. So beginning fund balance, as you can see, there's 167. We again had some planned spend down this year, but our revenues are 528 with our expenditures of 558, decreasing that fund balance just slightly is what the expectation is. But as I mentioned last week too, that we cannot have more than 3 months of expenditures, and we currently are close to that. So we would certainly want to make sure we maintain that or spend it down a little bit further if we have anything that we need to do in Fund 2. All right, so moving down to Fund 4, Michelle.
Yep.
Fund 4, we've discussed quite a bit lately, but our revenues and our expenditures are there to see for everybody. As you can see, we have the community education, which is doing fantastic. $195,080 in revenues expected, with $122,163 in expenditures. Growing that fund balance further is what the expectation or what the estimate is to be. Growing that to $281,000. And then, as we always talk about with early childhood, we try to break even or come close to that as possible. We don't want to gouge the public. We want to make sure that we're recovering our cost only, but we want to make sure to make that cost affordable for everybody. And then school readiness. So these are the students that will become the students of Royalton for K-12, hopefully, and they stay with us. So we try to bring them in, get them acclimated, but you can see this is $172,827 with spending of $240,000. We did have a fund balance in that prior, but that looks to be negative, which we could write that off from, one of our profitable community ed balance sheets above, or we could use the general fund to write that off as well. School readiness is one of those that, generally speaking, districts will every 3 to 5 years they'll zero that out to make it to basically start it over again. Next one is Fund 6, which we don't have any construction projects going on, so that's why it's all blank. And then Fund 7, as I mentioned last week too, this is what pays off the referendum or the bonds that we have gone out for in the past, and they were, the past referendums, excuse me. But we're starting to build up a little bit of fund balance there, so we might do a debt correction at some point. The auditors may ask us to do that. But we're having a bond payment of $210,909, or excuse me, that's revenue coming in from the levy. And then $2,020,608 is the amount going out for our expected bond payment. So with that said, any questions for me?
I'd like to make one clarifying point. The ECFE dollars are restricted, so you couldn't use ECFE dollars to help school it itself. Just so you can only use for ECFE purposes. So clarifying.
Can you explain that school readiness account and why it's always in the negative? What are we spending that money on, or what is it?
Staff, supplies, that's your preschool teachers, paras. And the problem with that is, depending on needs of children, you might end up thinking you only need maybe one para that can maybe share across classrooms, and you end up hiring other people for needs are. So, and you have to staff 1 to 10 ratios.
And the funding comes from,
Fund 4, so it comes in through, you get pathways 1, pathways 2, school readiness aid, and some fees. And yeah, fees.
so it's really hard to project what it's gonna be, that's why.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Without making the fees,
And we have to have a sliding fee
would be
scale
so big, right?
by law. So if a person can't afford to pay, they don't have to, you work with them through that sliding fee. So
I personally feel that money belongs in the general fund. Because the future of students, what it is, But that's just my opinion. Exactly what I have different opinion on that. So
my old job, I said, no, we're keeping it Fund 4. My new job, I'm like,
so
I like it run by preschool professionals. Preschool is not. So that's where I get on the protective.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion with revised budget? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the revised budget.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the revised budget. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes. Here. All right, I think, Scott, I think this one's to you as well, the approval of request for quote for auditor services.
Yeah, so I brought this up to the board last week too. And I just mentioned if the board chooses or if they want to, I just think it's a good idea if we as a district open this up to a new set of eyes from an auditing standpoint, just because it's good for districts to do. And most of my districts do this every probably 3 to 5 years. And I see that we have not done that for a while. So I think it'd be time and be a good practice to do for Royalton.
Any discussion?
Does anybody have questions on why? I know I covered this last week, but that's the main reason why. It doesn't mean that we're going to go away from our current auditors. It's just the fact to open that up to others to see if they want to work with Royalton and just get a different set of eyes on our audit.
So one quick question, that's your task then, Scott? You reach out and receive those bids?
We put that out, and I mean, any one of us can send it. If you know of a firm that does auditing, you can certainly send it to them to say we're looking for auditing services. But collectively as a group, we'll put that on our website, and we can reach out to auditing firms to see if they want to work with us.
Okay,
If
thanks.
you guys have any, I can certainly reach out to them as well.
How many firms are you planning on looking at, getting quotes from?
Well, once we put it on the website, as many that want to come in certainly can, and then we can review that as a group. And typically, I mean, it does not have to be solely based on price, which I think somebody brought up last week. It can be based on a lot of different things. But price is a big factor for that. If we can save some money from the audit, that'd be great. But that does not need to be the determining factor. It's just mainly trying to get a new set of eyes. And I mentioned too, we have with CARES funding, coming into the district and also being under the SFSP food service program, we have been over $750,000 in federal revenues, which means that we have been in single audit, which means it's a lot more testing going on. We're going to be really close this year to whether we hit that threshold or not at the 750,000. If we do, we'll be under a single audit again. If not, then it will be a easier audit, I should say. But so that also may have determining on what the cost we get back from the firms that want to bid to work with us.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for quote for auditor services. Well, I have a motion and a second to approve the request for quote for auditor service. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Approval of cuts resolution.
So MSBA is recommending that we do this annually. It does not mean we are cutting, as you can see from the prior revised budget. We're looking to actually add to our general fund balance, the unrestricted fund balance. So this is just what they say is best practice in the event, for example, something that the legislature would go crazy and would be in a position where you needed to cut, or I suppose if there was a program that we determined was no longer of value to our students or something to that effect, but this is more just perfunctory that they say is best practice. And I guess this was done in the past in the district here in Royalton and then wasn't for a while, and so I guess we're bringing this back.
Any discussion on that?
I have a couple questions on this. So is this the same language than from the previous time that we had this reduction resolution?
Actually, Scott was able to provide that he uses in another district. We looked through, we had talked about, I didn't see it we tried to find it, but we don't have a great practice. We're better.
Okay. One clarifying question for me is, given within this language, is this still requires board action to effectuate change, correct? Like this doesn't know by board interaction with.
Well, everything still comes through the board approval, but but it just is allowing you to go ahead and do that if that was the situation, I should say.
Sure. Well, one paragraph in specific here has me confused. The determination must be made as to which teachers' contracts may be terminated and not renewed, and which teachers may be placed on an unrequested leave of absence without pay or fringe benefits, in affecting discontinuance of positions, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't this language already in, or this process already in the teacher's contracts? On how to effectuate this change, like to not renew this and that, this is a dual.
No, the contract just states more about who you can't, you couldn't cut someone who's been, use a random example, you couldn't cut someone who's been here for 5 years instead of somebody who's just been here for 1. That's how some of that language works. But this is more of just the board allowing administration to make budget cuts if that were necessary.
Okay, well, is that also then under the principal's management role? And we're putting it in here to be under your responsibilities now?
No, that's always works as a team. Superintendent's always.
A part of that?
Always.
Okay. That's just the questions that I have on that. Yeah.
And again, we're not in, we can tell from our revised budget.
What was the reason it was brought forward? Just because?
I was in a training with MSBA. They come and do little trainings with all of our Region 5 superintendents, and they said that this was best practice in Shawnee. Just in case something were to happen at the legislature in this situation. Adjustments as easily as you need.
In my research, it looks like it's pretty standard. Most school districts do it when like at that initial.
The
to have-
January,
Yeah, to have like just you renew it every year. But it looked like it was pretty standard.
Which I think going forward is we shouldn't get in January. It makes way better sense to me that, because frankly speaking, you're gonna start making that, if you're in a situation with financial trouble, you're starting to talk about those kinds of things.
And part of that is my fault as well, because I wanted to bring it to a work session and to this before, because we should have done this probably in March when we kind of found out about it, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more and learn more about it.
Are there other standard practices we have that are just resolutions? Like this has got like policy language to me, but it's not it doesn't have the same weight as policy, correct? This is more of just procedure that we're gonna put in place. Is that what this
It's just an
document
authorization.
means, basically? Do we have other things that are standard like that we,
Donations.
the donations resolutions?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all the little processes.
That's the same question I had. Shouldn't this just be a policy?
Then you don't have to. That's
Right.
how
Usually the reason that it's policy or is resolution, because it's went legal before. You know, it's usually the reason. Policy, that's the reason is because, what everybody would say is common sense didn't prevail, so. It's,
I mean, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
I would also add that, I mean, I thought I heard somebody say that this is pretty standard across all school districts, which it is. And then some of that language that was read off also sounds to me like it's giving the superintendent the ability to make the necessary steps to push forward with them, such as like, for example, reaching out to American Insurance. A lot of times a company like that would put together a package for staff to give them the retirement option rather than going to cut in this situation if we were in it. So then those steps could take place before, typically the superintendent won't want to mention on April 1st whether or not somebody would be coming back, to allow them plenty of time to, find a new job if we were in that situation. Obviously we're not, but we just want to make sure we have that in writing so that superintendent can make those steps if we ever were in that situation. Come the revision of the budget is when typically we would come to the board and say, okay, this is what we're looking at, this is what we've done, and then discuss that with the board. Does that make sense?
All right.
Motion to approve.
By Director Bowman. So introduce the following resolution, move its adoption. Resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reduction of programs and positions and the reasons therefore. Whereas if the financial condition of the school district indicates that the school board may need to reduce expenditures, and whereas there may be a reduction in student enrollment, and whereas the reduction in expenditure and decrease in student enrollment may include discontinuance of positions and discontinuance or curtailment of programs. And whereas a determination must be made as to which teachers' contracts may be terminated and not renewed, and which teachers may be placed on unrequested leave of absence without pay or fringe benefits and affecting discontinuance of positions, be resolved by the school board of Independent School District 485 as follows. That the school board hereby directs the superintendent of schools and administration to consider the discontinuance of programs or positions to effectuate economies in the school district and reduce expenditures, and as a result of a reduction in enrollment, make recommendations to the school board for discontinuance of programs, curtailment of programs, discontinuance of positions, or curtailment of positions. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was seconded by member Rory. And upon a roll call vote being taken thereon.
Director Bauman.
Aye.
Director Hoffman.
Aye.
Director Hackett.
Aye.
Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Rory. Aye. Director Crowe. Aye.
Awesome. And no voted against. And no abstains. So the foregoing resolution was adopted this 24th day of April 23. All right, moving on to donations by resolution.
Motion approved.
Director Bowman introduced. The following resolution and its adoption. Whereas all information is included in your packet. The Royalton Lions Club has generously donated $1,000 to the BPA Club for 2023 Nationals expenses. The Royalton American Legion has generously donated $800 to the BPA Club for 2023 Nationals expenses. Royalton American Legion has generously donated $2,000 towards 4 individual account amounts of $500 for college scholarships at Royalton Public Schools. And Crow Wing Power has generously donated to the Royalton Public Schools $1,500 towards a 2023 college scholarship. And the conditions of these gifts are included in the packet. Therefore, be it resolved by the Royalton School Board to gratefully accept the gifts. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by member Crowe. And upon a roll call vote, the following voted.
Director Bauman.
Aye.
Director Hoffman.
Aye.
Director Hackett.
Aye.
Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Rory. Aye. Director Crowe. Aye.
All right. No one voted against and no one abstained. The foregoing was approved this 24th day of April 2023. With a big thank you to the Royalton Lions Club, American Legion, and Crow Wing Power. That's great for our kids. All right, next is approval of surveying families and staff.
So we talked about this at the work session, and then as soon as of course you're done and you go home, you think of another idea. I'd like to include students on this because I think we need to have student voice. So I was thinking we would do a staff and you would delineate by their role, and then we would do families, and then we'll do students, and we'll do a secondary, and elementary, I think we'll just probably do 4th and 5th. So if that's okay with the board, I'd like to be sure we get their voice in, and we're gonna be reviewing the surveys tomorrow at cabinet, and then for wordsmithing, that got them there. And then I'll forward them to the board for review for further wordsmithing, and then we can get them out. But I just wanna make sure the board is good with including student voice.
Any other discussion on that?
So I will email the surveys to you all, and then just email me individually back.
I have one, so I know we had talked about doing an additional survey for like the longer weekends or a spring break. I don't want to confuse anybody.
I
also,
don't wanna put that one on this, I don't think.
okay, you
I
want
think
that
that might
separate? Okay,
confuse people, like, what is, I don't know what's the board's line.
I don't know.
I
I'm
agree.
fine either way. I just thought if we wanted to, we could, because then it's one less survey that gets sent out, but if you want to keep them separate, that's fine too.
Because we could even do that survey later, because we've already.
Yeah, you can do that one.
Sure.
Yes, you could do that one after school's out.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve surveying families, staff, and students. Regarding e-learning days.
So moved.
Director Trove,
Second.
by Director Bowman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, policy reading. So we have, first policy reading of 505, distribution of non-school sponsored materials on school premises by students and employees. So looking at, the next one, 506, the student discipline, the second time we read through that, we realized that it referenced 505, so we put that on our docket and added that to it. So those two are, just moving one more along in that. And then we have one, policy that's at the second reading, and it's the final reading due to minor changes in it. So that one's the development of parent and family engagement policies for Title I programs. So I'll entertain a motion for that
So moved, Mr. Chair.
by Director Hackett. I'll second it. Director Hofstad. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And then, third policy reading, so we have 414 mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. And 415 mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults. So I'll take a motion to approve those two.
Motion approved.
Director Bowman,
I'll second it.
Director Hackett. Any discussion on those two? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, upcoming meeting schedule. So we have a policy meeting Wednesday, May 10th. And that evening, oh yeah, that's after mid-state, yep. May 10th, 6:30 PM work session meeting. And then May 16th at noon for the finance meeting, and then Monday, May 22nd at 6 PM for the regular board meeting. Anything else on there? Everybody's still good for the 10th?
Is there participation, is there option for participation in that via like a Google Meet or Zoom in? You have to be in person for work session?
We haven't in the past.
Okay.
Mostly because there's not a public comment section in there.
Okay.
So. Is that something we should do?
I don't know that, we'd have to double check on whether we can have that.
I meant for my own participation. I have a conflict that I haven't been able to resolve yet in participating.
We do that with work sessions.
I don't think so either.
I don't think MSB.
So we need to find an actual answer on that.
I can. I think that was emergency thing that went away, but I'll.
You're recalculating right now.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out.
Buffering thing.
Yeah, I can't attend, but I'm just running into roadblocks and trying to structure. So I
Yep.
just wanted to see what that would be.
As far as just May 10th, you can't make it?
Right, so, couple of the dates.
We were talking about May 11th, well, were we? We're not set in stone, right?
Change it today.
Yeah,
Right.
as long as we can get it in time to post it. That's
Right,
good.
right.
Yeah.
What time is that concert? The fourth and fifth grade concert, didn't you say it was May 11th?
It's 6:30.
That's the only conflict with that concert happening at the same time.
Mhm.
We can just leave it as if it works best for everybody, and I'll just continue to work on, it's just you asked the loaded question.
Yeah.
As if it was a conflict, I'm still working out the details on that. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to ask,
Yeah,
what are
absolutely.
the options for participation? So,
And I'll check just in case.
And are we not willing to change it for extracurricular stuff? I mean, I missed a baseball game tonight, you know what I mean? There's just gonna be extracurricular stuff moving forward all the time. You know, that people are gonna have to miss, obviously. So the 11th works for everybody. I don't know why we just don't change it to the 11th.
And I'm fine with that. There's nothing on the 10th and we had already talked about that, so, that's where I was sitting, but. I don't know who has a conflict with the 11th with, elementary musical. Does anybody?
Well, me and Phil, but I mean, I can, oh,
I do, I mean, I can miss it, but
oh, your child.
yeah, I was gonna do it, but I could miss it if I need to.
Well, I thought we were talking about it,
Yeah.
just to see.
But I can miss, Phil can miss this. And we don't. Supervise kids, he can miss the work session.
Well, let me ask, how long do we think that's gonna go? Could we move our meeting to 7:30 on the 11th? To be
It
after
will
that?
only be an hour, won't it, or 45 minutes?
Right, I would, yes, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Not that 6
An
o'clock.
hour,
so we could even do 7:15,
probably.
because,
Well, you're gonna have a lot of people exiting and so
but
forth.
if we just have to come in here.
Yeah.
I'd say
I mean,
let's
it
just
can
do
work.
7:30 to be safe.
You wanna do 7:30?
So
That'll
that's
be
a question.
Yeah, that's the question.
That works for me. That's better for me. Yeah.
What's better for you?
Tell me what day it's gonna rain. That's the day I wanna have a meeting. Whatever.
Does that work for you, Maria?
That would-
Okay.
So can you say that again, so we have here?
So it is, we are changing the May 10th work session to May 11th at 7:30 PM.
The person who shows up here on the 10th at 6 o'clock is gonna be alone.
Well, luckily that hasn't gone.
Right.
Yep.
What did the last one go, 2 hours?
I don't, let's say just keep it brief then.
We'll talk fast.
This one should be a little bit less.
Well, right, well,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be good. I think we're checking.
Yeah. I think so. We'll see. We'll try.
Depends how many questions.
Well, we have a lot of good stuff coming up too, so
Yeah, it is good.
it's good to do that. All right, any other discussion? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Director Heck. Director Roaring. All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? Abstain? All right, motion carries for adjournment at
7:13.
7:13 PM.